In this video, I'm going to show you the differences between these two motors, the hottest lightweight motors for 2023, and the latest in e-bike tech and innovation. I'll compare power, noise, integration levels, and more. It's highly likely that if you're looking at a lightweight bike for 2023, you have a bike with one of these inside. Over the past 4 months, I've been testing them extensively across a few different bikes. The new breed of lightweight bikes are agile, fast, and well designed. They blend ride characteristics that are more like a regular pedal mountain bike. So agile, poppy, playful and light, but allow you to ride further and faster than before. The new motors are getting more refined, quieter and more powerful. And the total bike weights are as low as 16-17 kilos, and that completely changes the feel of an electric mountain bike. So we have TQ's new HPR50 with 50 Nm of torque and 300 watts of power. And then we have Fazua's all-new Ride 60 with 60 Nm of torque and 450 watts of power, and a 360 battery for TQ and a 430 watt-hour battery for the Fazua. So here we've got two of the latest bikes that are using these lightweight motors. The Trek Fuel EXe, this has the TQ motor, and the Haibike Lyke, brand new for 2023, and this has the Fazua Ride 60 system in it. But I've got to say, first of all, they do look super neat. The integration is pretty awesome, but they don't even look like e-bikes. But does aesthetics really matter? Well, yeah, I think so. It's nice to look at them and check out the design, and I think we all really are searching for that well-designed, neatly integrated e-bike with super clean lines and neatly integrated batteries. So we'll take a closer look at these. We'll start with the TQ system. I'm gonna go through all the things that I do like and the things that I think could be better. Got a little controller on here, really tactile and clicky. And what I mean by that is you click it, you get a nice kind of clicky feel in the finger, and you can actually hear a little beep as well. And actually that makes quite a difference when you're riding along the trail. You imagine you're charging along, you don't really want to think about clicking and whether you've changed a mode. You want it really like your gears, and it's super easy to know exactly when you've changed. You don't really want to be thinking about any of this stuff when you're riding. You just want to think about the trail. So this is really neat and compact. Visually looks pretty decent. It's nice and discreet, but I really like, I like that. It's very tactile. You get that kind of haptic feedback. Sounds really simple, but not a lot of bikes operate in this manner. Some have quite a mushy feeling remote. Some don't make a beep at all, and it's really difficult to know if you've actually changed modes, and some you need to look down on. This may seem like a really small and trivial thing, but trust me, it does make a difference. So that's really decent. I like that. This video is sponsored by AG1. AG1 by Athletic Greens is a nutritional drink that contains 75 different ingredients, including vitamins, minerals, superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. I've been drinking AG1 for a while now, every single day, and I've found that it's really helped with energy and recovery after long rides. I've also taken AG1 away with me on multi-day bike trips, because getting proper nutrition when you're out on the road and you're traveling a lot in a van or a car and you're in the middle of nowhere, it can be difficult to get the nutrition that your body needs. And because it's really quick, simple and easy to prepare, I found it really effortless to form part of my daily routine. So 1 scoop of AG1 in 250 ml of water provides vitamins, minerals and whole food sourced ingredients. So I am actually a big coffee drinker, but I found recently, since I've been drinking AG1, that I haven't needed anywhere near as much to give me that boost throughout the day. It smells kind of sweet actually, and it's got like a coconut kind of taste, but doesn't taste harsh. It tastes a little bit sweet and a little bit coconutty. I actually quite like the taste, so wanna go? So go to athleticgreens.com/RobRides to get started on your first purchase and receive 1 year free vitamin D3 and K2 and 5 travel packs as well. And thanks to Athletic Greens for sponsoring this video. So the display on here is one of the neatest in terms of integration that I've seen on an electric mountain bike. It's really flush with the top tube. It just looks nice and premium. It's discreet, doesn't stick out, gives you all of the essential information on here. And you've just got a little button, which as I press, you can probably hear the beeps. Cycles through the different display modes on there, tells you the battery, the time. It's just makes sense. Everything on there is easy to see, easy to understand. You know exactly what it is. Easy to see in bright sunlight as well because of this display. I do think there is an opportunity to make a really neat looking OLED display. I think I'd like to see that in the future because it is just a segmented display. So like you'd have on a calculator, that kind of display technology. It's quite an old school display technology. The benefits of that, however, are it is very legible, it's low energy usage, bright sunlight, super easy to see. But the downsides are it's all fixed, so all the information on here will exist forever. You can't change the location of the battery, you can't change some of the locations of the display for the speed and the time. It's all kind of burnt into the display, if you like. It won't change in a future update. There might be some small things that they might be able to do, but it's not like your phone or an OLED display that can have an infinite amount of display possibilities. This is a fixed segmented display, so it's always going to look like that. Don't get me wrong, I do think this is decent. It gets the job done, it's very effective, and it's better than a lot of the displays out there on the market. But I think on a £10,000 bike, it would be nice to see premium stuff everywhere. So checking out the motor integration, this is possibly, I mean, they're all getting really good, but this is so neat down here. Like really, you can barely tell it's an e-bike. It is so discreet. The motor unit on here, as we saw in the studio, is a tiny, tiny little motor unit. And this gives lots of space for kind of the suspension to work, the kinematics to work. There's not really that much space needed for this motor, so they're less restricted in terms of the suspension movement and the rear kinematics, but it's really tightly integrated down here. I love the look of this. The battery on this bike slides out of the down tube, really simple, just 2 bolts in the bottom to remove it. So yeah, it's a totally removable battery. Here we go, if I just switch it around on the other side, you can see how small and compact this TQ unit is. Just like, it's tiny, tiny, tiny. This is really the only giveaway sign that the bike has a motor on it. Nice and compact down there, and yeah, really decent size. What I've noticed on this drive unit is there's no ratchet point. So as you're spinning the pedals, it's instant engagement. So if you imagine as you're riding along and you're about to kind of go up a, I don't know, a rock garden or over some techie sections, as soon as you start driving your feet through the pedals, through the cranks, you get instant engagement. I really like that on e-bikes. Not a lot of e-bikes have this instant engagement. Some have gearing and kind of ratchets inside. So yeah, as soon as you're putting your power down, as you can see, you're driving into the motor, and that motor is going to give you instant assistance. And paired with a fast engagement hub like this one here, I think this is 108 tooth on the rear. So that combo of fast engaging motor system and fast engaging hub are like the dream combo if you like that really quick pickup. So over to the Fazua Ride 60 system. So we've got the ring controller on the Fazua Ride 60 system. Again, really discreet and actually so tactile. You can be riding along, you don't need to visually look at it, and it works in a slightly different way. It's almost like a toggle switch. So whereas on the TQ it's a clicky switch, but on here it's on like a sprung-loaded kind of toggle switch. It is really intuitive and really easy to understand and use. I do find it a little bit plasticky, feels a little bit cheaper in terms of construction, and it doesn't feel that premium to me. Again, I'm calling this out because these are expensive electric mountain bikes. We're talking 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, £10,000, £12,000. So yeah, I want everything to be as premium and as perfect as possible. And this, while it is effective in operation, does feel a little bit cheap. And actually, if I move over to the top tube LED display, again, it's kind of basic. It's only giving me some indications as to what mode I'm in and the battery level in 5 increments. So the TQ gives you an exact percentage, much like your phone. This is going to give you 5 increments in 20% increments, so not quite as precise. And it kind of feels a little bit, much like the controller, a little bit plasticky and not the best use of space perhaps. It's quite chunky, it's quite a thick display unit on there. You can connect it to a computer, so there's a little USB-C port under there. But yeah, I'm not a massive fan of these. They're functional, but they just don't scream out premium. So where I was calling out the TQ display for not really being color, this doesn't even have a screen. It's just, yeah, 5 basic LEDs. And while I'm talking about the LEDs, they're really bright. So if you're riding and it's kind of lower light, they can be a little bit distracting. I've looked on the app and I've not yet found a way to make them slightly dimmer. So hopefully that'll be a future update. So the motor unit is really stealthily done on this bike here. So we've got the drive unit in here and it extends up here into the seat tube. So you remember in the studio, I showed you the motor. It's more kind of like a longer shape as opposed to the kind of almost like square cubey kind of ball shape that the TQ is. So it's a longer drive system, and you can see what Haibike have done is they've designed it so you still get the battery really low and you can remove the battery on this model. The motor is twisted up and it kind of goes into here. What it does do, I think, on longer droppers, I haven't tested it with a longer dropper, but you're not going to have a huge amount of dropper posts that you can get in there. You're not going to be able to fit in these like 230, 240 droppers and slam the post because there's going to be a lack of clearance because it's going to kind of come into contact with the motor on here. But that's just this bike design. Others are totally different and not designed in this way. But this bit does have to go somewhere. So in some others, I've seen it kind of head up this way here and be located kind of parallel to the ground. So it's not quite as compact, but in terms of power, on paper, it's more powerful with up to 450 watts and 60 Newton meters. So more power, but a bigger motor. So the Fazua is not quite as fast as Engaging, but it is much faster than their previous version that I tested that only had about 24 points of engagement. There's a little bit of movement in the crank arms before the motor engages, depending on where I kind of land in the ratchet system of the bike. So not a biggie at all. I just thought I'd call it out whilst I'm doing some direct comparisons. And in fact, this can also bring some benefits. You can get a little bit less kind of pedal kickback because you've got a little bit of play in the motor system. Some brands like O-Chain are actually bringing out devices that almost replicate this. They give some degrees of movement. So when the suspension is moving through the travel and the chain is pulling on the chain ring, you don't get as much kickback through the pedals because you've got a little bit more float in there. So whilst it's not as instant at driving through the motor system as a TQ, there are some benefits to having this. It's almost got like a mini built-in O-chain in the motor. So when you read the marketing stuff for the motors, they claim that they're pretty quiet. There's definitely some noise, so I'll ride along with them. I'll put them in full power mode. I'll spin at fairly high cadence to try and bring out the worst in the motor noises, and we'll compare them together. So first up, we'll go with the TQ. You'll hear what I'm hearing. My microphone is here, so I'm in the most powerful mode. I'm on a very slight gradient, so it's not gonna give it a huge amount of stress and heat, but let's give it a go. It's pretty quiet. So impressive how quiet the motor is, not silent. You can hear a little kind of motor whir, it's a very slight ticking noise as well, but that is on grass basically. When I'm on gravel or trails, the sound of the dirt that you're riding on really does override this. So Fazua Ride 60, highest mode. I've got to give them credit, they're both really quiet. There's definitely a higher pitch noise on here that I can hear. Doesn't really bother me at all, but it's not super stealth and super quiet like the TQ. That is like the king of quiet and stealthy electric mountain bike motors. This has a distinct whir. You can hear it, it's not silent by any means, but it is really quiet in comparison to some of the full power electric mountain bikes. So whilst they both claim near silent, TQ is definitely the winner in this test, and Fazua close second, but I can definitely hear some motor noise and some whir. So I found a nice climb over here. This is one that if you were on a regular pedal bike, you'd probably be like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. It's quite steep. It's a pretty aggressive gradient. It's not the longest hill in the world, but it's definitely a good test to put these bikes into full power mode and find out which one can get to the top of the hill the quickest. Really, it's only back to back, same rider on the same hill, you can really tell. So the TQ on paper has 50 Newton meters of torque and 300 watts of power. Now the Fazua Ride 60 has 60 Newton meters of torque, so an additional 10 Newton meters of rotational torque, and up to 450 watts of peak power. It's a little bit different on this. It has this extra boost mode that you activate by holding up, and it gives you 12 seconds of extra boost. So the way I'm gonna do it is I'm gonna ride this one first in the maximum power, everything's dialed up on the app, and then I will ride this one in the maximum power mode. Again, everything dialed up, and then I'll use the little kind of party trick mode and use the extra boost to see how much we can get from that. So effectively there'll be 3 runs. Make sure I'm in the right gear, gear number 3. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Okay, a couple of points I want to make before I get the time. I did this one first because the TQ is on paper the lower power one, so I thought I'd give it the best chance of getting a good time. But I am running heavier tyres, double down tyres, and a max grip out the front, which will make a little bit of difference, and it's a little bit slacker, so it's a bit more kind of trail, burly trail enduro oriented in this setup that I've got. What was the time? 53.88. Okay, so that gives us our reference point, 53.88. Now, what I do notice is the low down grunt, as when you start getting down to those lower cadences. On full power bikes, as you continue pedaling and you are easing off the pedals on each rotation, the bikes carry on going forwards, but this gets to the point where, because it is quite steep here, where after each pedal rotation, you can feel the bike kind of lagging back a little bit, where it hasn't got any overrun on the motor. Very natural feeling, but you kind of get to the point where it's like, and you're really kind of grinding out the power. I've chosen this climb, by the way, because there's no real technical features on it. It's just a steep climb, like you would get on many bike rides that you do. It's a steep, punchy climb. It's a stinger of a climb, just gets progressively steeper. So 53.88 on the Fuel EXe with a TQ motor. Let's try the Fazua. Now on the Fazua Ride 60 in purple, which means the top mode, fastest mode. Let's give it a go, see if I can beat the TQ. 3, 2, 1. So this does have lighter casing tyres on, but it's going to make a small difference. Both got carbon rims, both weigh a similar amount. The Trek's a little bit heavier by about a kilo actually. But that being said, I can feel down low, especially when it starts to get really steep and you're grinding at a slower pace. So it definitely felt quicker. I could feel it quicker. I know it's quicker, but how much quicker? What's the time? 47.38, and the other one was 53.80 something, so six seconds. 6 seconds quicker, and I did it second. Yeah, 6 seconds quicker, that's impressive. This does have a party trick available as well. It's got this additional boost. So I'm gonna get an extra 100 watts temporarily by holding down this kind of party mode trick that it's got. And as you hold this down for about 4 seconds, it gives you an additional 12 seconds of boost. So it'll give me an additional 100 watts. So we'll take it from a peak of 350 to 450 for 12 seconds. When that 12 seconds is up, I'm just gonna press it again and get that 450 again and find out how much quicker it does over the standard with this additional 100 watts boost. The Trek TQ is 300 watts max. This is 350, but with this additional boost, it's going to take it to 450. Okay, extra boost setting. Gear check, gear number 3.
3, 2, 1.
Stop. So with that additional 100 watts, actually the rear tyre becomes the limiting factor. It started to spin up the rear tyre when it started to get really steep. So with a beefier rear tyre, I think I actually could have got up there slightly quicker, but it definitely felt quicker all over the place, like right down low, right up the top. I could feel that extra torque. So it felt quicker. What was the time? 44.20. So the last was 47.38 roughly. So it's 3 seconds quicker again. So it's 3 seconds quicker with the party mode extra boost, temporary boost. I think this is where this boost is at the most benefit, because I've tried this additional 100 watts boost on technical climbs, and I felt it's a little bit dangerous because it gives you 12 seconds, then it just stops and goes back down to the default turbo mode. And if you're on a techie rocky climb, you don't want to be losing any power when you're trying to encounter more rocks. But on these kind of fire road, just like climbs that really sting, this is where this really comes into its own. So that's impressive. So not only was the standard turbo mode quicker than the TQ, the additional boost took off another 3 seconds. So I'm impressed with that, really impressive. Now, again, don't read too much into this test. The bikes are different, they got different tires, but it gives you a good indication of the power levels between them. And no doubt, like, I know this one's quicker, feels more powerful, and the proof is in the times. So I've learned quite a lot testing these two motors. And in fact, they're both really decent. I would take any one of these in any bike. There are some characteristics of each one, and I think there's some pros and cons. So definitely the TQ in terms of build quality seems just superior. It seems like a more mature product, even though they're fairly new. Everything about it seems a little bit better built. Like the switches, everything you touch and see just feels and looks better, I think anyway. In terms of the power though, the Fazua's definitely got it. You saw in the test. It's more punchy, definitely more punchy low down, and you can feel that. So it errs more towards the e-bike feel, and the TQ errs more towards like a natural pedal bike feel with like superhuman kind of consistent power. So if you're looking for something that is really natural, the TQ is going to give that. The Fazua gives more of a kind of boost. Now the power between them, the Fazua puts out 450 at peak, and the TQ is 300. So there's a fair amount of difference, but I do think the Fazua is a little bit marketing led with that 450 mode, because, and what I mean by that is you only get that for 12 seconds. So you have to activate this mode by holding up for about 4 seconds, and then it will activate the extra boost mode, the 450 watts for 12 seconds. And in my experience on continued like really long 300-400 meter climbs, it started to not offer it. I think that when the motor gets to a certain temperature, it doesn't give you that extra boost. It just will kind of max out at 350 watts. That being said, it is cool that it's there, and I would definitely use it on long, boring fire road climb. I've tried using it on some really steep sections and some techie sections, and it's actually a little bit like disconcerting when it drops back down after 12 seconds to 350 watts. You lose power, and sometimes when you really need it. So I would use it only on stuff that isn't gonna phase you or rock your balance a little bit if it drops down to that 350 watts. Weight-wise, there's not a huge amount in it. The TQ motor is ever so slightly lighter, 150 grams-ish, thereabouts. And the TQ battery is less capacity, therefore is lighter. So as a total system weight, I think the absolute lightest bikes could be made with the TQ system versus the Fazua that has a slightly heavier motor and a slightly heavier battery. Now, even though the Fazua is more powerful, it does have a bigger battery to compensate for that. I did find the range on the Fazua was better than the TQ. All in, my rides on the TQ maxed out to 100%. I was getting about 750 meters of elevation. That was me cranking everything up. I just wanted to exhaust the battery and find out at my 80 kilo riding weight what I could get. whereas the Fazua gave me about 1,200, 1,300 in full power mode, and that was with some use of the turbo, the extra overboost feature as well. Now, even though the battery's slightly bigger on the Fazua, I did find I was getting disproportionately more range out of the Fazua compared to the TQ. And this was even before I changed the TQ tyres to the Max grip. This was when it was stock from Trek. So I did find the Fazua offering a pretty decent range considering it's got a 460 battery. Rides of over 1,000 meters of elevation, especially in top turbo mode, easily achievable. Now there's one more thing to consider, and that is reliability. These motors are fairly new, so I've been doing some research online and some forums and some Facebook groups, and it seems that both of the motors do have some slight early issues. It is difficult to try and ascertain exactly how widespread these are because, hey look, people go online to report issues, and when things are wrong, that's where you go and kind of seek for the answers and maybe post your issues online. But early reports are showing that there are some software glitches with the Fazua. Now, apparently there is a update coming out really soon. By the time you watch this, it's hopefully come out, but there are some issues of like white LEDs and it needing software updates at the dealers. And with TQ, some riders are reporting slight grinding noises, some unnatural kind of sounds within their motors. There are a handful of reports of each one of these, so I don't know how widespread it is, but both of these motors are not without issues right now. But I wouldn't let that stop me buying one of these bikes because dealer backup these days is pretty good. So any issues, you should be sorted out. But just to note, there are some things that I'm seeing bubble up on the forums. But overall, these motors are brilliant. Hasn't tech moved so quickly over the past few years? These bikes, like, honestly, like the Focus, the Trek, the Haibike, they're so minimalist and they're looking great now, and it's a real great time to be looking at a lightweight electric mountain bike. So if you like this video, you should watch this one up here. It's the same, but with the full power motors. I test a range of different motors in loads of different bikes with really similar tests, so you should check that out up here now.